Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in today. My name is Felipe from the Instantly team, and today I have the great Josh Whitfield. How are you doing today, Josh?
I'm good, Felipe. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming. So today we will be having a very interesting conversation about how to use AI to book more meetings. Josh is going to walk us through some of his recent results, also his process. So, guys, you will learn a lot of things today. But how about we start first with maybe a quick introduction about yourself, Josh? You were telling me that you have a very diverse background, so maybe you can motivate others. Yeah, using your journey as an example.
Yeah, thanks, Felipe. So, believe it or not, I was thinking this morning, I've been working almost 30 years, everything from fast food to I was actually a firefighter for 11 years. And then I got into insurance for almost 17 years. So, everything from handling claims, adjusting auto accidents to I was in special investigations for about 10 years. And then the last 5 or 6 years, I finished my bachelor's and my MBA with a concentration in data science. And so I led a data science team, a couple different teams, a data science team, an automation team, a data team. I like to tell people that I was working for a company a couple of years ago where we submitted a review to the legal team to use OpenAI's models, um, just large language models, a couple of years ago, and we couldn't get it approved because they didn't have the financial solvency to do business with them. And then now look at them; they're a $10 billion company. So, but I tell you what's interesting about my story is I kind of did started doing this in July with Instantly, using Instantly more as just a side hustle, a way to grow content marketing media in my business. And then in October, it became a full time thing. So I became fully focused on that. Left was no longer at my former insurance career, and it became a thing I had to do to really support my family and grow my business. And so I became very detailed and driven towards making it successful. So so at the end of the day, it's I went from Taco Bell to doing this full time almost 30 years ago, and it's been quite the ride.
Amazing, amazing. That's very inspiring. I guess it shows people that if you're just starting to this, to call, email, to outbound, if you have discipline or if you're curious enough, I guess you can get great results. Because um, I think talking a little bit about some of the results that you have achieved, and you share them in our community, which, by the way, we are very grateful for because we have a very active community with members like yourself. But it wouldn't be possible, if you wouldn't share some of the stuff that you do. So um, I remember, for example, that recently you shared a screenshot where you booked, I think, like 200 meetings, maybe it was more, but it was like something like 200 meetings a month. You have some very impressive results using AI, and I know you told me that you are consulting agencies, but how about we maybe start like from the macro? So like how about we start like telling people like how do you get to achieve those results? How can someone get 200 meetings a month using cold outreach and using AI?
Yeah, I think to start, one of the things I loved about Instantly is I came in really not knowing a whole lot. So I was actively involved in the accelerator, right? Just going through learning the fundamentals and the basics of cold email. There's a I don't I've gone back to try to find it. I know it's in there, but there was basically a graphic or a breakdown that said if you sent this many emails, you got this many replies, you booked this many meetings. So I just took and cut and paste that and put that on a Word document and said, okay, I'm going to follow that. So I just literally went in and followed the instructions. I bought Google accounts, and Microsoft at the time as well. I bought good domains. I literally just followed the instructions to the T because I felt like, you guys know what you're doing. Why not just trust and see what happens, right? And so I started off with 15 accounts and I started sending on those 15 accounts and I started getting replies. Now, my background was getting pitched the last 5 years from tech companies on my LinkedIn in cold email. So I decided the day I started to send emails that I was not going to send emails like the emails that I see every day in my spam inbox, right? And if they make it to my inbox, I like the joke that there's a link building email that we all get that somebody literally cut and paste, and then 30 different people send it to me every day. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to write emails in a way that I always wanted people to write emails to me. So I didn't actually use AI to start. I didn't actually start using AI, full time until the beginning of this year. But I just started drafting emails and writing them in a way where I'm not going to try to sell to people on the first email. I mean, I'm going to use calls or meetings to do that, or my website or another means to do that. I'm just going to write emails in a human way that I would want to open, right? So I always, when I created copy, I always went, if I remove myself from what I do, would I really, really want to open this email? If I looked at this subject line, am I going to look at this subject line? Because I try to think like I used to be a business person, or the people that I'm emailing, they're busy. They
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
50 emails, probably every couple hours. Felipe, they don't necessarily have time. They're going to open the email from their boss. They're going to open their email from their team, right? That's a given. Everything else is just a bonus. And if you start to think from that perspective, then you have to have a subject line that is somewhat appealing and not salesy. You have to have copy that is short, sweet, professional, and to the point. Because otherwise, you look like everybody else.
Yeah.
And we don't have time for everybody else. We only have a limited amount of a time in our day for something new. So that's just how I created my copy. And then by refining that, A/B testing that, coming up with good follow up sequences that weren't salesy. At the end of the day, we were hitting 200 meetings a month by October, mostly with CEOs and founders, and just trying to think like a CEO and founder who gets hundreds of emails a day. What's going to make them open my email over everything else? And that was really our approach. And then we moved into AI, and then we kind of took somewhat of a different approach, if that makes sense.
Amazing. I think you kind of like summarize a lot of the things that we strongly recommend at Instantly. And by the way, I appreciate your trust. Like it's always like so fascinating to hear these stories where someone will come and tell us like, yeah, we follow exactly what you guys recommended, and we got the results, and we started scaling that. So um because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create content that people can use, and they can actually get ROI from it. So I think the way we usually see that works for most successful users is you will sort of like test different angles, and then you will automate and scale, and that's pretty much what you have done. You have introduced AI later on, but a lot of people kind of want to rush things, and they want to start immediately with AI before even polishing the offer, before polishing the copy, before polishing the database source. And I think you just have done it almost perfectly. That your process is by the books, how it should be to get results. Um, and we will like jump into in a minute into the whole AI thing. But I think one thing that I would like to ask you more is um, how do you get the attention of people? Like actually let's talk a little bit more about like your experience as an executive, as working in business, and what is the psychology behind that? Like how do you make sure that your emails stand out? How do you make sure that your emails make people reply to them? Because some people recommend make the email shorter. Some people will say like make sure the call to action is like not a meeting, but it's something that people should respond very easily to. But what is your secret? Like, do you have anything there that you would like to share with people?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go the route that I've gone lately, which is AI, then I think it's somewhat of a different approach. So I'm going to speak to probably the 99% that aren't using AI, and I think at the end of the day, it's brevity matters, right? We're all busy. Like it doesn't matter who you are. You're busy, right? And you have to think like people think, right? So some people are open their emails on their computer, some people are open their emails on their phone, right? More and more people are probably opening their emails on their phone. So you have to write in a way that is personable. I think when I've made posts in the past, the favorite thing I say is talk like a human,
Yeah.
and talk like you would talk. And I think that goes also into deliverability, because if we think about how things get flagged for spam, I like to point out that the two biggest investors in AI in the world right now are Google and Microsoft, right? Microsoft, you know, invests 10 billion in ChatGPT. Google has all the things they're doing. They're also the two people that we're emailing the most, right? At the end of the day, it's Microsoft, you know, Outlook, or we're emailing Google or Google Workspace, right? So they are evolving as we are evolving, right? But what doesn't change is the fact that when you're sending any kind of bulk email, your goal is to sound like a human and talk like a human. So when you start adding all these different components that look like everybody else, my background's AI and data science. These algorithms are extremely smart, and so they know when 19 different people, doesn't matter when they're sending emails, are using the same line over and over again, whether or not they're flagging that as spam, it doesn't mean that they're not picking up on it, right? And so when you can create email that mimics human behavior, email that mimics the fact that this is an email that I would send to a buddy that worked at another company because I want him to be interested in this opportunity. That's just the approach I try to take, right? At the end of the day, it's I want to sound like somebody that is not trying to sell them something. I want to sound like someone who says, "Hey, here is an opportunity that I think you should explore. Let's talk." So I don't say, "Can we connect on a meeting?" I say things like, "Can we connect? Can we discuss further? Can we have more discussion about this opportunity? Can I, drive a return on investment in your business?" But I do it generally no more than a couple sentences, and my CTA is always just generally soft. Like, "Can we discuss this further? Can we connect to discuss further?" Because I believe that the more you ask for things or demand things, the more you're salesy. I don't even know if that's a word, but the more you're sales like, you're pushy, you talk about savings and all these different things, you're just turning people off. I
Yeah.
mean, I just send emails that I would want to engage with and people that I work with want to engage with, not emails that, I don't believe in cute emojis and all that. I try to write like a professional. And I think
Yeah.
people appreciate that.
Oh, emojis are such a turn off. Like it, I think we could talk like for hours about this subject, but like honestly, I've been wanting for a while to do like a webinar or a live where we dissect like call emails from people, like or even random call emails that I'm receiving myself, or maybe that you're receiving. Like I think that would be so fun because some of them are just they just look so unnatural, like with emojis and like in the community. I've seen some people sharing like emails that they address professionals or founders like "Hey, bro," or similar.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you're right. And somebody, I wish I could remember the guy's name because it was a beautiful post. He basically took a screenshot of his email and he said, "Would you respond to any of these?" And if you looked at them, they had, and I actually have screenshotted it myself, and because it's such a true testament of the fact that we are reaching out to businesses that are trying to make a bottom line, that are trying to support their employees, that are trying to do the right thing. And we're saying, "Hi, I'm Josh. I want to insert myself into your life." Right. And if you think about it from that perspective, their job is to make a bottom line, their job is to grow their business. They have families, they have a lot of things that they're going to worry about. The least we can do is be professional. Right. And just say, "Look, I'd like to introduce you to this opportunity, whatever it is, whether it's lead generation, whether it's SEO, whether it's a new website," right? It To be fair though, Felipe, it's not to say that certain things don't work. I've seen emojis that could work, right? People have found ways to make things work, right? And I give them credit for that. I'm just saying, on a general consensus, if you're going to reach out to somebody who's running a business or somebody who's making decisions, you got to think from their perspective. And I would just tell you that, even from a Google and Microsoft perspective, that is not how business people email other business people.
Yeah.
And, maybe we do on our Facebook Messenger, or, we send a text message, we send a cool, emoji or whatever. But in the professional world, people generally just do not send emojis or send cute stuff. It's all business because that's what they have time for.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one. Amazing. So let's move into the next subject, which is okay. So let's say that hypothetically speaking, we found the right way to craft our message, or the basically our message is getting replies, right? So now we want to scale that, and obviously we want to use AI to like tweak our message, or like make it even more customized. So where will you begin? Because I have noticed that you've shared like a lot of guides where you will use instantly combined with Clay. You will also scrape other sources of data. So how about you tell people like some of your secret sauce? I think that would be like very interesting to a lot of people out there.
Yeah, no, it's been an evolution, right? 'Cause so here's the one disclaimer I'll give you about AI. The day you think you figured it out, it'll change, right? I've told some of the people that I've consulted recently, like just within the last 2 weeks, OpenAI has come out and said that they're gonna be able to, and they've actually given proof, they're gonna be able to create 60-second videos with prompts. And they've shown 12 or 13 examples of it, and people in Hollywood and across the industry are freaking out because it's
Yeah,
really that good. I mean, it's literally mind-blowing. And I use that to the point to say that, just a year and a half ago, ChatGPT didn't exist.
yeah,
Like, it is happening fast. And so I feel like what I put a lot of time and effort into is just focusing on that evolution, and then bringing that evolution into my business in any way I can, where it makes sense. Because the problem or the challenge with AI is it's easy to do it really, really bad, right? And I see a lot of people that struggle with trying to do it to a level of that level of professionalism that we talked about. Where should you start? I mean, be familiar with prompt engineering. At the end of the day, that's all this is. They're going to continue to build tools like Clay, GPT Sheets. You guys are doing it inside Instantly, that are going to enable almost anybody to bring some level of AI and sophistication to their copy, right? And the companies will make it easier. They don't want to make it where you have to write an API call, because that's very difficult for the 99.9% of people. But the commonality in all that is prompt engineering, right? And with what we do is taking the time to build prompts that generate professional, measurable data that then we can use to do whatever we want. So, in essence, Felipe, and I've shared this actual prompt, we go in and we pull research on a business that pulls data directly from their website, that pulls data directly from their LinkedIn profile. We actually enhance it with our Instantly data. So, like recently, you guys incorporated news into lead finders. So, that's another trigger that we now pull into our data. And so, we build 4 to 5 paragraphs of research and that we can enhance with any data source. And then from there, we can build personalized first lines, right? We can build value propositions. We've actually done some scoring models where we take and look at what we're offering and what potential need that company has. And then with the prompt engineering, we write a couple sentences that basically explains to the customer in the email that you have this need and this is how we fill that gap. But then we use data to drive whether or not we should send it to them in the first place, because if they just announced an employee layoff of 5,000 people, I don't know that I necessarily want to offer content marketing to promote that, right? So, that's where I think data is critical. And at the end of the day, if you can get this is what I tell my clients from a consulting perspective. If you can understand the basics of prompt engineering, you can utilize the right tools to get the data that you need, then you're only limited by your imagination and the data that you can get your hands on. And you can come up with any kind of use case, and your benefit is going to be when you're reaching out to people trying to solve problems that they didn't either know they had, or offering something that's so specific to them that they believe you spent hundreds of hours researching their business. They might even reply to you because they feel guilty, much
Yeah.
less because you're solving a problem, right? Because, I could pay somebody to spend 30 minutes doing this kind of research on every single company, and that would cost me, I don't know, 15, $20 per lead. Or I can do it with AI and it costs me, 1/10 of 1 cent per lead, right? And so it's a no-brainer for us.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. So let's dissect your process a little bit. So you mentioned to me that you use instant lead finder for some of your campaigns. So obviously in our database we verify the leads and everything, and like you said, we provide like some signals like companies hiring or companies expanding and so on. So you mentioned to me also that you will take this data later to Clay, and you will use a Claygen, which basically runs a custom search on each one of the websites or each one of those companies. Are there any specifics that you also do on Clay or Claygen to enrich the data, or any other ways that you will use to enrich the data? Because I find it fantastic how you don't just take one data point. Like you basically want to enrich these companies as much as possible with as much data as possible, so your emails are hyper customized. So what other like data points do you use? Like what's the process you also use on Clay before you put the data back into Instantly and send the campaign?
Yeah, so the first thing we do is we customize our search within Instantly Lead Finder, right? So from our actual search, right, we can say this is our ICP. So we will go into Lead Finder and we'll say, for example, I want to target CEOs and founders. I want to focus on these because we have customers right now in 7 different countries. So, and for us, they're all English speaking countries. So I'll say I want to target US, Canada, UK, New Zealand, et cetera, Australia. And then we'll say, I want companies that are seed or pre-seed. I want companies. So we break down our search using Lead Finder, and that's our first output, right?
Yeah.
Those leads download into a campaign. We wait till they're verified. Once they're verified, we pull those leads out via CSV, import into Clay, and then essentially we have that subset of data. And we use obviously Instantly Lead Finder because it's allowed us to book hundreds of meetings with CEOs and founders. But it doesn't. I would say my process, if you had your leads coming from somewhere else, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you did, it doesn't matter what your input is. Your input is only, you should have a name, an email, a website, right, at a minimum. And so from there, we within Clay, that's when we run our research prompts. So our research prompts start off with ClayGen, and it's a very detailed prompt that basically goes in and it looks at all the pages on the website itself, like the about page, the pricing page, etc. And then we have the prompt set up that if it doesn't get enough information to go out and do a Google search, and we pull in the company name, which is in our Instantly data, and then we have it do a Google search. So that is our first, what I would call our first triage method. So we have that output. From that output, we then enhance that output by running a second prompt where we combine the LinkedIn data that we have from the company and we pull that through Clay, but obviously we could get it anywhere. We enhance that with the LinkedIn data and then combine that with other Instantly data that wasn't in the first prompt. Like if there's news, if there's keywords, right? Keywords is another one we enhance that prompt with. And so we have found, and I've done thousands of leads with this process. It's a balancing act between the quality of your data and how much you're willing to spend in open AI costs. Because if you run it with 3.5, it's 1/20th of the cost, but it's sometimes 1/20th of the quality of the output if you use GPT-4 or GPT-4 Turbo. So I even went as far as testing every combination of GPT because there's 3.5, there's 4 and 4 Turbo, and plugging those outputs into Google Gemini and having it evaluate the quality from a persona-based perspective of someone who would receive that email, and then assigning scores to that so I could make the decision of, you know, how good is the quality versus what I'm spending to get this lead. And then to even take that further, and I tell people this, I always test when I build prompts on my own company because who knows my company better than me? And so when I build prompts and stuff, I'm always using my own company because then I know how good the output is. And then I know how good I would likely respond to an email that I had with that output. Because if it's, like with AI, as I said in the beginning, you can do it really, really well, or you can do it really, really bad. And I can imagine the amount of spam reports I would get if I sent emails that had other people's information in it, or you know did a bad job talking about the company, if that makes sense. So that's our process, and then Then we can do any of our other enrichments, Felipe, whether it be personalized first lines, value propositions, ICP evaluations, scoring models. But once we do all that, that's when and the nice thing is that we can push that directly back into instantly with the enrichment that's built into Clay. And so that's our whole process from beginning to end.
Nice, fantastic. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think like the prompting part and also polishing the prompts and the results is key. Like we have heard some funny stories. Like for example, we heard someone recently scraping LinkedIn posts from a list of people, and then basically they will enrich the data to create personalized first lines. Like for example, hey, I saw you posted about X, and so on and so on, and then they pitch their product. But some people post very personal stuff, and unfortunately, someone post something about a funeral of a close relative, and then the email was pretty much like, hey, I saw your post about I don't know, your brother's funeral. That's amazing. Here's my product. And that just like just terrible. That's why it's so important to like test the prompts, polish them, customize them, because yeah, stuff like that can happen. But if you do the job well, like you do, if you use different data sources and you polish the prompts and you tell the prompts like to identify when it's a good idea to create a personalized first line or not, because you can also do that with the prompts. You can tell them like if you detect any negative or sad posts or comments, better not to engage or create anything. So that can also be doable. So with AI, it's just literally up to people's creativity. By the way, guys, we will be answering your questions live, because I see some comments. We're live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, but we are reading all of your comments. So I see already Harshdeep. He's asking if we will have a Q&A. We will have a Q&A soon. So make sure you ask your questions live on the chat, and we'll be answering them. So Josh, so how about you also walk us through maybe any success stories, like anything that you recently have seen, because you obviously have been working with a few people. So anything that you've noticed during the past year that surprised you in terms of results, and sort of like that can motivate others into venturing into this.
Yeah, I mean, like for us, it's you have to keep pushing. I mean, I guess the one thing when I share things is I don't probably share is, we've had I've had 80-hour weeks, right? 18-hour days, right? You've got to be all in, and it doesn't just happen, right? It happens at the pace by which you're willing to change, you're willing to try new things, you're willing to not be afraid to fail, because you're gonna fail a lot more than you succeed, right? You're gonna be that guy that sends the funeral LinkedIn notification. You're gonna do that a lot more than you're gonna close deals, right? It takes failure to make success, and then once you fail a couple times, you've got to learn and just adjust and keep trying different things, and you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So I would tell you what surprised me more than anything, a couple things. Number one is that there's a lot more people succeeding in this group, especially like the Instantly group, for example. I think there's 35,000 plus people in that group. There's a lot of people succeeding in that group that just don't post, right? I have a good group of people that are running very successful agencies and companies that I interact with a regular basis that are doing extremely well. They just don't post as much as I do. There's multiple ways to skin this cat, Felipe. That's the other thing I've learned, right? I mean, just because I do AI and get results doesn't mean you have to do AI to get results, right? There's a lot of people that are getting results. I've had interactions with some pretty huge names, especially recently, and that's really surprised me that some names that in the marketing world that people would recognize, that they actually replied and engaged with us based off an email that we completely wrote with AI. So that surprised me. Just the other day we had somebody that literally got one email from us, went to our website and purchased a package.
Oh wow.
So, I think probably the most phenomenal thing that's happened is I started dropping in our phone number in our signature. And, sometimes 5 or 10 times a day, people are just getting our email and calling us. Like they're not even replying, or they go to my LinkedIn page and they're like, are you real? Can I really talk to you? Just the things you don't expect. So I mean, it's an interesting evolution. It's things that we have to prepare for. I always tell people that once you figure out how to get replies, you have a whole new set of problems. Like, how do I reply to the replies? How do I make sure that people show up to meetings? How do I do a better job closing? Right? I'm proud that my team are all people that I engage with directly from the Instantly group. I mean, I have one of the best closers in the industry, and it was someone that I met on the Instantly group, and we really clicked, and he has really helped drive forward my business. Just the people on my team have come from somewhat of a like-minded approach, which has just really helped us to be you know, positive, not be afraid to try new things. So I don't know. Every day it's like something surprises me, but at the end of the day, they seem to be positive things. But I've also surprised myself doing dumb stuff, right? Like, why did I do that? Why did I? It's like you sent out. We've probably all done this, but you sent out 500 emails, and you're like, oh, I forgot to preview the copy, and I left the subject name out, or
Yeah.
just something stupid, right? So every day is something, it's you learn as long as you learn and improve. I mean, that's what I try to do is just say, okay, we're gonna screw up, we're gonna make mistakes, but we have to take the wins with the losses, and just keep trying to get better every day.
Yeah, no, that happens. I think like through my 10 years doing this stuff, I've made every mistake. I mean, not every mistake, but like at least the major ones. Like for example, I don't know, like the typical like forgot to insert the variable correctly. So for example, the campaign will go out and everyone will receive like dear first name. And
Hmm.
actually, it's funny because some people will reply back and they will be like, hey, yeah, I realize it's an automated email, like it's pretty obvious. Or I don't know, like once I also, while organizing the data or cleaning the data on Excel, because the old school way was using Excel or Google Sheets to organize or clean the data, I would sometimes delete wrongly like one row, and then let's say like the name with the rest of the data wouldn't match. So basically, I'll be like filling the variables for the wrong people. So for example, if I have one row of data with let's say Josh and let's say my name, and then I will just skip one row by accident, and I will be like mixing up the entire database and sending just the wrong um, first name and basically all the data to the wrong people. So it will be very um, interesting, but I think those mistakes you just make them once and then you just learn from them. So I think what's important is just to make those mistakes, to learn from them, to grow. So yeah, at the end of the day, those are learning experiences. So I completely agree with you. And actually, I think that brings us to the next topic in this live Q&A, which is improvements. So do you have a process to constantly improve? Like what is your process like? Yeah, how do you improve your campaigns? What do you look into? Like how do you improve your copies, your lead databases, your prompts? Like what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, my background's data, right? So at the end of the day, data drives everything. Excuse me, for me. I mean, I look at probably too much. They say paralysis by analysis. That's probably me sometimes, where I just look at the data and I say, is this getting what I want? What I want? I mean, my favorite example of that is that in October, and I think I actually made a post on this. In October, we got 200 meetings in October. Like most people would, just give up their firstborn child to get 200 meetings, right? But that wasn't good enough for me because I was like, okay, that's fine. But what percentage of those meetings actually showed up? What percentage of those people actually closed? What was the general, output of the meeting? Did they come in well qualified? Right? That was the whole once you get the meetings, you have a whole new set of problems, right? So for us, what we did is, and it took us 1,200 positive replies to get 200 meetings. So 1 out of 6. So the other thing I'm thinking, Felipe, from a data perspective is, okay, if 200 people out of 1,200 that positively replied, scheduled a meeting, what are we doing with those other 1,000, right? That's a lot of lost opportunities, you know? And so I look at, return on investment for what we're investing in the AI or not investing in AI, and the outbound, the leads, and every component of that. So I look at it from a cost perspective. I look at it from an engagement perspective. So what we did is we moved to AI and we ran a full month doing full outbound AI. We got back to the 200 meetings. And so what I noticed is instead of taking 1,200 positive replies to get 200 meetings, it was taking us 400 positive replies to get 200 meetings. And so those meetings, people were showing up, they were more qualified. We were getting more closes out of that. In February, which we just wrapped up, we had our best month exponentially by far that we've ever had. And so I think it's more than, just understanding is it's more than just A B testing copy. You have to go through a process of, did I do the technical setup right? Am I doing everything that I should be doing? And then you look at your subject line, because I tell people, who cares how good your copy is if no one ever opens your email, right?
Yeah.
So your subject line's got to be decent. And then once you open your email and people open your email, right? We talked about that approach earlier, but you need to A B test your copy and constantly be improving. But once you nail it, and once you have what you want, then you start to work on something else. And so use data as long as you're using data to drive your decisions and not emotion, because emotion gets in the way. My perspective of my business is totally different than anybody receiving my email. They don't know me, you know? So I've got to have some social proof, right? So I just look at, it's a long-winded answer to your question to say that data should drive everything, but if you make changes from your data, please just do it one at a time, because if you're making 5 changes in your process every week, you're never gonna know which one's making the difference.
Yeah. No, that makes absolute sense. Love it. So how about we start answering some questions from the community? I think let's start from this one. I mean, actually was the first question anyway. So um why instantly and why not others? I think this one is to you, Josh, because yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that from 2 perspectives. Number 1, um, you know, at the end of the day, why would I ever move away from something that's working, right? So when I got into this, I didn't know anything about cold email. And so, sure, there were all kinds of different platforms that were out there, but Instantly was the one that intrigued me. To be honest, it's probably because it had some level of focus on AI, which I was really, really interested in. But I will tell you, once I got in, the free warm up really enticed me, because I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I can put it in as many accounts that I want," right? But then I got in, and I will tell you what really hooked me was the training material at the beginning, because I didn't know anything, and so I just read through and I learned about it. And then, I started sending with 15 accounts, and I felt it was easy to adjust to. I felt like there was just really a good community of people that I could learn from. Like in the very beginning, I was just lurking, well, probably like most people do, reading and learning, um, and I've grown my business exponentially because of Instantly. So I don't know. It's just, there's probably more cost effective ways to get my leads. There's probably someone out there right now that's offering something similar to Instantly at a cheaper price. There's probably people out there that are listening to this going, I had this one issue with Instantly that support didn't resolve quick enough. But I've been around long enough to know, I mean, and especially dealing with tech companies, and I run a business, nothing is perfect, number one. There is no perfect. Number 2, I just stick and do business with people that treat me with respect, that, do the best they can every day, knowing that everything's not gonna be perfect. And more importantly, they get me results. And so Instantly has done nothing but get me results from the day I signed up. So I have no desire to spend time looking for anything else, because, there's always going to be something better, right? Just look at iPhones. Every month or 6 months, there's a new iPhone, right? But should you spend $1,000 just to have the newest iPhone? I mean, that's not the philosophy I come from, right? I come from, if it's working, why would I want to evolve? And more importantly, I think to give Instantly a lot of credit, they are constantly evolving, right? There's always new features. There's always new things coming along. So I'm just happy. I mean, but I told Felipe this earlier when we were talking, but let's to be clear, I don't pay any less than anybody else, right? I mean, I pay the same amount as everybody else does. So this is not a free commercial for Instantly. It's just
that
because I use it because it works, right?
that that's what I wanted to add as a disclaimer that you're not being paid to say this. I was actually curious
Hmm.
like about the answer, and I was like, I hope this doesn't backfire. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely like yeah, you're paid the same as everyone. Um but yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty. And honestly, none of this will be possible without you and other users that are always giving us feedback. So that's literally like our secret sauce, just listening to you guys. So thank you everyone out there in the
Yeah.
community. Like you mean a lot to us. And yeah, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. So let's jump into the next question. So um let's talk about CTAs. I think this question is about like with your CTA or call to action, asking for a general chat as opposed for a general meeting seems vague. What would you why would you say that, or what would you say to that? So I
Yeah,
think
I mean,
yeah,
yeah, that's it's a fair statement. It does seem vague, but it works, right? So, a lot of things that I say might seem vague, right? But I literally will say at the end of one of every one of my emails, "Can we connect to discuss?" That's it. I mean, and if I change it, it's some variation of that, right? Because here's the thing. And maybe I didn't explain this well enough, but you have to I believe in understanding human psychology,
yeah,
right? And understanding how people work. And I just use my own experience of being pitched all the time to form that opinion. It's not the end all be all, right? There's other things that can work. You can ask for a meeting and it might work. I'm just telling you what works for me. Um, but I just don't I think there's psychology around using words like follow up or, things that trigger sales resistance, right? So I just say, can we connect to discuss? Because what happens is people will reply and say yes. And any reply is an opportunity, to trigger additional conversation, right?
yeah,
Or they'll say, call me, or they'll say, yes, I'm available at 3 o'clock, right? When I ask for a meeting, there's a finite amount of answers I can get to that. Whereas when I ask, can we connect to discuss? I have felt it creates additional opportunity for people to say yes in some capacity or another. It doesn't mean that asking for a meeting is not the right thing to do. I just say this is what we do because it works.
yeah. I completely agree with you on that one. I like what we have noticed with our successful users, and also with the campaigns we launch ourselves, because we also send campaigns and we use instantly to grow instantly, is that usually you want to create as like basically you want to make the response for the other person as easy as possible, and usually let the other person set the terms for the conversation to continue. And in fact, when you and I receive emails, like I think we can both agree that whenever someone emails us and they are like, hey, how about we talk tomorrow at 4 p.m., it almost feels like disrespectful. It's like, don't you know that we're all busy? Like, you are pitching to me, let me set the terms and how I want to continue the conversation, and then you have like some people that I think they watch Wolf of Wall Street too many times, and they don't understand that, nowadays like everyone knows like all those sales lead tricks, and everyone knows that that trying to like have short-term gains, it's just not the way of doing business. You want to create like a relationship, and I think cold emails is about that. It's about starting a conversation. It's about starting a relationship, building something, and rather than like a quick money grab. um
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that's a great one. So let's jump into the next question. Oh, here are some comments from LinkedIn from Binay. $1 million insights. Yeah, appreciate that. I mean, it's Josh who takes all the credits here. I'm just making the questions. He's dropping the value bombs here. So his question is, how do you make sure each email carries something personalized and do this in bulk, as in send thousands of emails at one go? So yeah, I think you spoke a little bit about it, but you can go deeper or add something else.
Yeah. So I'd say today within our email body, there is some consistent text that's always there, right? But if you were to look at our actual email template that goes out in our campaigns, it's injected with 4 to 5 paragraphs of highly personalized AI. And that all comes from that business research that I was talking about earlier. And so I'm not recommending that everybody send 4 to 5 paragraphs, right? I mean, that's a personal choice that we make that works. But and we've done it where we didn't. But to answer your question, I mean, what we do is we pipe that AI into back into instantly once we've done that work in Clay, and then it goes outbound with every one of our emails. And so it is very hyper personalized. Today we're doing that about 3,500 emails a day. In about a week or two, that'll be up to about 10K. And it's a process. We're making it more efficient, making it more cost effective, tweaking it every week. And, sometimes you'll find out that, you add something in there that drops your reply rate, or you do something that increases your reply rate, right? So we're always A/B testing, looking and seeing what worked. And I don't think I've really ever mentioned this too, but the one thing we didn't talk about today was leads, right? So you have to be cognizant of your ICP, and you have to be cognizant of who you're reaching out to, because you can have the greatest copy in the world, but if you're sending an offer to create a Facebook page, for somebody who is in a country that Facebook's banned, then you're never going to get any replies, right? So you just got to have that. You still got to have that awareness in the back of your mind.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Um, let's jump into the next question. So,
The best
second,
GPT one.
yeah, this one.
Yeah, that's a great
So,
question. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to get what you pay for when it comes to GPT. I don't use four. I've done some research on four, and at the end of the day, it's a little bit more expensive than four turbo. Um, so I use only four turbo or 3.5. It really depends on how complex you want to get with your AI. That at the end of the day, if you want highly detailed output, then you're going to use four turbo or four, but you're going to pay 20 times as much as if you use 3.5. So, I mean, you can do things with GPT 3.5 that cost 1/10 of 1 cent, and so it's pretty easy to do that at scale. And then we've done things with GPT-4 Turbo that cost 15 to 20 cents a lead. So, and 15 or 20 cents doesn't sound like a lot until you multiply it by 6,000 every week, and then it gets pretty expensive. So, you've got to look at the output of the quality, and you've got to run tests with both, and then say, okay, what am I willing to give up to pay less, or what am I not willing to give up to pay more?
yeah, I guess it also has to do with an opportunity cost because, for example, if each lead is like worth like let's say $5,000, like or each business is worth like a couple of thousands, it's definitely worth to like pay a little bit more for the latest model.
Yeah,
But if your product is like I don't know, like a $10 SaaS or something like that, like yeah, maybe you might be like be more careful with your costs. So yeah, it's probably about that. But that's a great question. I actually want to ask you the same thing. And in fact, since you are always up to date with like all the AI models and so on, like what can we expect on the next models, like on let's say GPT-5 or like what do you think is coming up next? Because one thing that I've been um, looking for is for OpenAI APIs to basically scrape data from Google and so on, because that way, basically from instantly you can like scrape websites and so on, because that wasn't possible with the previous models. But they were saying that now it's going to be available with the newer API updates. I haven't tested it myself, but I guess it should be coming up soon. But I don't know, like, do you have any insights or people can expect?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the most immediate thing we can expect is just because they've announced it is some kind of level of video creation, right? So that's when we get into what we call multimodal models, right? And so we already see with GPT the ability to create images, right? And we already see, through plugins and through all kinds of integrations, being able to create your own GPT, which we've done. I know you guys have done for email copy. I would just expect higher processing speed The one thing I love about OpenAI, to be fair, is that every time they release a new model, they make the last model a lot cheaper. And so that's going to be nice when they release a new model that I can use GPT-4 that I'm using every day today at 1/20th of the cost or some variation of that. I would
Yeah.
expect more functionality in the ability to create just video, image, more. Today you can use the GPT vision model to actually go in and look at websites and scrape data off that. Um, but who knows? I mean, I just use the video thing as a reference point because nobody knew it was coming. I mean, they just dropped it out of the clear blue sky, and then that's the kind of thing. And you can't forget, and this is what I try to remind people, is this is how real it's getting. Microsoft is building all of their GPT stuff into their enterprise stuff. So when you start releasing things, to billion-dollar corporations, which Microsoft is doing through Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, right? There's a lot of real money that's going into behind this. I don't fully know, or does anybody, the true relationship with Microsoft and OpenAI, but there's definitely a $10 billion relationship there. And you can't dismiss Google, right? What they're doing with Gemini, and some people argue is even more powerful than OpenAI. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to hit a point where it's so much that we really can't even keep up with it, and you're just going to have to find what works best for you. But I think we're probably less than a year out where you can create any video, any audio, any photo, or any combination thereof. Question is, who's going to figure out how to send that in their first email? I mean, that's my charge in life is I want to send 60-second AI videos to people in the first email that I write totally with prompts and do it 6,000, 10,000 leads at a time. But who knows, right? That's why we keep up with it and try to evolve as it evolves.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome. So, how about this one? So, from the Facebook community, Josh, have you tried scraping Google Business via Clay? So, yeah,
Yeah, it's easy. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a connection to GBPs, right? I have one myself, so it makes it really easy to test. You can actually scrape the reviews, and we're looking at some use cases that get really interesting, where you pull down like 20 different reviews. I've tested on my own business because I think we're up to 21, and you go in and you can do some sentiment analysis and stuff. Again, I would tell you, remind you, whether it be Clay or any other tool, with AI today and the tools that are available, you're just limited by your imagination, and can you make a connection to that data, uh, even if there's not an integration in Instantly, or there's not an integration in Clay. There are ways to, there are a whole variety of ways to connect this data. It doesn't have to be through Clay or through Instantly. You can do it today in Google Sheets, where you bring this data together, and you're just limited by your imagination to how you take that data, aggregate it, bring it together, and put it some measurable output. So yeah, I mean, it's a long way to answer your question, but you can do GBPs in Clay, you can do reviews, you know, um, and even if you couldn't, you could still do it through Google search APIs, etc.
yeah, amazing. So, next question: can we ask about specific mistakes and good strategies that we can use? We spoke a little bit about that already, but yeah, any other mistakes that you think people should look after, or maybe yeah, any other recommended strategies that you might have?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at least from a mistake perspective is just, in the beginning, I don't know that we paid attention as much to the technical side of this. Like, as much as I think Instantly is extremely user friendly, you got to take a little time to understand the settings, right? Like, I think Moen talked about this in his live, is, you know, like, I underestimated understanding warm up as much as I should, because no matter how technical and good you are, like, accounts are going to start to dwindle in performance, and you need to understand what you can do to rectify that. You need to understand that in the aspect of mimicking human behavior, you want to have that delay there. So you have, one email sending out 2 minutes apart, the next one sending out 4 minutes apart. You need to understand, like, if you add the unsubscribe button to your email, what the impact on that is. So, I think those are the mistakes I made, is not necessarily spending enough time on the technical side. And then I think on the strategy side, I would just tell you that every time I change a copy, I email multiple of my own emails and test it, right? Does it hit my inbox? Does it hit spam? We're running a business, right? So we have emails. I think we all forget, if we're sending outbound emails, we have a lot of different emails that we can test different things with. And so that's one of the strategies I use. And then, I try to look at, like, the copy I send myself and go, okay, it's hard, but would I really, really respond to this? Would I really, really open that email? And so, I remind people that you are your own, for most people, you're your own harshest critic, right? Nobody will criticize yourself more than you criticize yourself. So if you take that approach of just taking yourself out of your business for a minute and saying, is this good? Would I engage with this? That's a strategy that is very hard to employ, but when I do it well, I often will go, okay, no, as much as I think that's such a great, you know, fancy looking, beautiful email that I'm about to send out to 10,000 people, I wouldn't reply. So why do I expect anybody else would reply? You know?
Yeah, makes absolute sense. So next question is, what are some tips on how to find if basically this, like, just to summarize it, is how many times should you email someone and how consistently? So basically this person is asking whether it's worth to email someone 5 times over a period of a month, or if it's better to email someone once a month over a year. So yeah, what has been your experience with in terms of like how consistent you should be and how often you should email someone?
Yeah. So, no offense to the person that asked this question, but I would say neither. I mean, I believe in, I put all the effort into the first email, and then we send two follow ups, and that's it. So, yes, that creates more cost, right? The more emails you send to somebody, the more cost effective it's going to be. But I think you email me 5 times in a month, and I'm going to send you to spam. I mean, just because it's just too much. I mean, we believe in, there's a fine line. I'm not saying that that doesn't work for people. I'm not saying that people haven't closed deals off the seventh email. There's always going to be an exception to the rule. I try to pay attention to what people that are much better at this than me say, and they all say 4 max, probably 3 is the right amount over a couple days, and then you move on, right? Because you have to balance that, them reporting you to spam because you're annoying them, um, and your cost per lead. Because if your only objection to that argument would be, well, I need my lead to last longer so I can spend less money, and that's understandable, right? I get that component, but I think you have to remember too that if someone, we are intruding into someone's life. Maybe it's just their email and that's no big deal, but we're still forcing ourselves in uninvited into their email box, and they likely don't know us. And so I just believe in doing that softly, because the harder you hit, the more you're just like everybody else that sends 7 emails, and you're one spam report away from, and you'll survive for a little while, but domains aren't cheap. The process to build them is a process, right? So my email domains have lasted so far. I think we're on month 8 or 9, and we're still kicking. So I'm happy with at least the approach we take.
Wow, good process out there. I mean, amazing. I think like if you stick to the 4 pillars of cold email, which are like good technical setup, good copy, good database, and good offer, like you could run that setup for years. I mean, I wouldn't see
Yeah.
a problem with that. So, um, I also like, just to add to your answer, one thing we notice as well is that emailing has to do a lot with timing. So when you send an email to someone, maybe it might not be the right time for them to purchase. Maybe they don't have budget because they already spend it all. So one thing we recommend is, I think the 3 emails that you're sending is perfect. Like, we in fact analyzed 32 million emails, and we realized that most of the replies happen on the first email. Like you said, put all the efforts on the first email. And then you might get like a few more in the second and third. But after that, it just drops dramatically. And then um, if you repeat that process, those 3 emails, like, so to say, in 6 more months or in a couple more months, um, you might be able to get the interest of that person because just the buying cycle is right. Maybe that's the
Mhm.
right time of the year for them to spend money or to make that decision or to have that conversation. Because it's pretty much like anything in life. Like, like if you email me right now to get a loan for a house, maybe I do not want to buy a house now. But maybe if you do it in 6 more months or in a year's time, maybe my wife will start like checking some houses and she'll be like, hey, have you seen this house? And then the time will be right. So yeah, I think timing has a lot to do with it. And I think that's why like your strategy to like enrich context with data works so well, because you're pretty much um just um targeting people at the right time based on the data that
Mm.
you're getting out there. So yeah. Okay, so the next question from Zach. How long do you try a campaign before pivoting to a new campaign?
Uh, I think I'd have to speak to kind of the beginning because today we really don't pivot anymore. We're happy with the copy. We might tweak little things here and there, but I believe in statistical significance, right? So you can't send 100 emails and then say, okay, I failed, right? I mean, everything's relevant to, if you're only targeting a very specific niche, then maybe that's all you have. um, but in the general premise of emailing, I believe you need at least 1,000 emails outbound to have any level of statistical significance to say I'm going to take action from this one way or the other. So that would, Zach, that would be my bare minimum of 1,000 emails that I have some confidence are being delivered. Now, I wouldn't track open rates. I know that's a controversial thing to say. I wouldn't do that, but I would at least, if I sent 1,000 emails and got 0 replies, I'd probably shift and do something different. But like I said earlier, don't blow everything up at one time, right? Just focus on the subject or focus on a sentence or something specific in the copy, because when you try to change too many things at one time, you're never going to know what's working.
Yeah, amazing. And I think this is the last question. Basically, what is your email infrastructure setup? So, where do you purchase your domains? Where do you purchase like the email accounts? Like, how do you currently do it to scale your sending?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I will tell you this, the first time I did it, the first 90 accounts, I did it all myself. And I remember one weekend sitting on the floor for like 12 hours in different places throughout the house while my family was going about their business doing DMART records. And that might be the day I decided I never wanted to do cold email again, because it's just so mundane and repetitive and forwarding email accounts and adding profile pictures and stuff. But it's worth it, right? I mean, you get what you actually put the work into. Now, I use Demandology, who you featured on your last live, just because they're great partners. Moen's a great partner to work with, and they operate their business like I do. They just try to do the right thing for the right reason. So um, we just recently tripled our accounts using them. So that's who we'll use going forward, and it's because if you saw the last live stream, they are like me. They believe in doing things for the right reason, do it the right way, and that's how I want to run my business, and that's the kind of partners we believe in engaging. Plus, I just don't, unfortunately, I don't have the desire, or the time to sit down and do that all over. But I felt like I had to do it so I could understand and appreciate when things go wrong. What happens when accounts disconnect, all the little things that we don't think about until we're running 90 email accounts at a time.
Yeah. No, Moin and his team are great. I'm actually very happy to hear you use them because honestly, like there's so many Google and Outlook account resellers, but he's definitely like one of the few that um, we'll be very straightforward and we'll tell you probably like if you're trying to buy like 5 or 10 email accounts, he'll tell you like probably you might be better off with like buying a higher volume of accounts. And he's just not trying to sell you something. He's generally trying to help you to land on the inbox and scale your sending. So yeah, I think you're partnering with the right guy. Besides, like he gets like each email account for like $3 a month, which is fantastic. rather than like the $7 or $8 price per month. I forgot the price for a Google or Outlook account today, but yeah, somewhere around that. So yeah, fantastic. So Josh, I think that we cover most of it, but if people have further questions, what will be the best place for people to reach out to you? What will be your, in case you want to share like your website or your email, so people can write to you?
Yeah, so I would say probably on our website, you can see the logo, but it's contentmarketingmedia.org. You know, you can Google us. I'm all over Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm heavily involved in the group. Facebook Messenger is fine. You know, we run our the nice thing about us is we run our primary business, which is content marketing media, and then we do email consultations on the side. And we don't do outbound email. I only help people with the AI side, the basic principles, complex AI builds, that kind of thing. But we don't do the whole process, right? Which is why we work with a lot of different agencies and partners, because we're really just helping, you know, companies evolve, find better ways to do copy, et cetera. But all of those avenues are fine, you know, whatever works for you. And um, you know, we help a lot of people. I mean, my favorite thing is if you go to our Google business profile, which we mentioned somebody had a question about, and you see the reviews, those are from people that run $1 million agencies all the way down to guys that, you know, have been doing it for a few weeks, right? And we tailor kind of our approach to say anybody can do this. Got to be willing to put in the work, but you know, we'll help you in a way that kind of aligns with what you're trying to accomplish, which is different for everybody.
Amazing. Amazing. So thank you so much once again for your time. And thank you everyone for tuning in today. Again, my name is Oliver from the Instantly team. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.